There's more trouble on the horizon for President Biden. Half of his supporters said they would be open to another candidate in 2024. This is according to a Quinnipiac University poll published on Wednesday. While 51% of respondents are willing to switch their vote to a different candidate, 46% reported they plan on sticking with Biden.
Meanwhile, Washington Post columnist David Ignatius penned an op-ed calling for Biden to bow out of the 2024 presidential election. In the piece titled "President Biden Should Not Run Again in 2024, Ignatius writes, quote, "It's painful to say that given my admiration for much of what they have accomplished, but if he and Harris campaign together in 2024, I think Biden risks undoing his greatest achievement, which was stopping Trump." Here to help us break this all down is Sabrina Salvati, host of the Sabby Sabs podcast. Welcome, Sabrina. I'm wondering, given that the Washington Post has this column now just openly discussing and calling for Joe Biden not to run again, is this a one-off? Is this the establishment getting the marching orders that it's time to sort of jettison Joe Biden? What exactly do you make of this?
I think so. I think this is a good example of how mainstream media participates in electoral politics and can push and sway some of these political decisions. So if the Washington Post, which is a big one, is speaking out and they're vehemently against Joe Biden running for re-election, I think that definitely sends off bells and whistles in reference to the Democratic Party and the DNC as well. I think what people are going to start thinking about, there have been rumblings about no labels as well. There have been rumblings about possibility of a Joe Manchin running against Joe Biden. He hasn't confirmed that yet, but there have been talks about that. But we also have to remember there's also Marianne Williamson and RFK Jr. Running against Joe Biden inside the Democratic Party. And Cornel West is running against Joe Biden through the Green Party. There's also a Dr. Shiva running as an independent. Jasmine Sullivan's running as an independent. Those are just some of the few that I know off the top of my head. And I think that this could really open up a lane for a third party run, for someone to come in outside of the duopoly, for those voters, those half of those voters who said they want someone other than Joe Biden. Maybe they may start to look towards a third party option. And I think that that would be great for someone like a Cornel West. A lot of people that I've spoken to, they didn't even know that Joe Biden had primary challengers. I know a lot of us in this space, sometimes we can find that hard to believe because this is what we talk about a lot, talk about politics. So we're heavily paying attention. But a lot of people don't even know that Marianne Williamson and RFK Jr. are actually running against Joe Biden. Either they're not paying attention to electoral politics yet, or they just haven't seen this information. So I really do think this could be the year going into 2024. This could be the time where a third party race could really break out.
I think that's a really good point about the lane for a third party candidate that exists right now. I remember the narrative was largely that people voted for Biden because Trump was a loose cannon. He didn't do a good job with COVID. We don't know what he's going to do with the nuclear codes. Why is he talking to Kim Jong-un? And so I think that all of this is totally flipped on its head with this recent poll from Quinnipiac, which found that Americans overwhelmingly trust Trump to handle a national crisis better than Biden. 52% think Trump would do better, while 42% believe Biden would. I think this has a lot to do with how he handled, the crisis economically in our country immediately when he came into office. There were a lot of policies around economic stimulus that were necessary, but not a lot of policies that lifted up the working class in America that were struggling the most during the pandemic. What do you credit this flip to, Sabrina, or do you think it's a flip at all compared to how people were voting in 2020?
I think the economy is a huge factor. A lot of people are not happy with the inflation rates, which as many times as I've heard politicians say that the economy is actually improving. I just saw something recently the other day that said the inflation rate has actually increased again. So there's that. The grocery store prices are increasing at least every week where I live. So I think the economy is a big factor for people, and some people are going to vote with their wallets when they vote in 2024. The other issue is in reference to handling a national crisis. I think that also goes back to Joe Biden's cognitive ability. I think a lot of people see Joe Biden is making up stories. He's saying he was present the day after 9/11 in New York when he was in DC. He's continuing to fall down. He's stumbling over his words. during press conferences. He's asking where he's supposed to go next. It's very apparent that Joe Biden is struggling mentally. He's having those issues. So in reference to handling some type of catastrophe or disaster, I understand why more Americans would say that they don't feel comfortable with Biden handling that, because he just doesn't seem to have it all together at this point.
It is interesting to see the difference between the Biden supporters and the Trump supporters. And if you look at the numbers, former President Trump supporters have proved more loyal to their preferred candidate than Biden's did, which I think goes to a lot of what you were just explaining. So among voters who said they plan on supporting Trump in the Republican primary, 68% said they are firmly set on the former president, regardless of what happens between now and the Republican primary. Now, 29% said they might change their candidate choice depending on what happens. But then over on Biden's side, he leads Trump by 1 percentage point, 47 to 46, in a survey of the general electorate in the Quinnipiac poll. So what does this say about Joe Biden and his supporters? You know, again, you mentioned that a lot of people did look to him in 2020 in order to sort of stop Trump. But then you look at people now saying,
and turn people out to the polls on the basis of that promise, which he immediately stopped talking about the second he got elected and reneged upon. He also knew the authority that he had to cancel all student debt. And I know because all of these student debt advocates have been talking about how they were directly liaising with his office and communicating these points, and they chose to ignore them and do a plan that he knew could be obstructed. You can say it's not a conspiracy theory, that's conspiratorial thinking, but it's either a conspiracy or he's an idiot. Those are the options. And I'm not especially comfortable in validating either of those things. Now, you were saying that you were looking through the prism of your own perspective.
No, I was saying I expected nothing from him, like we all expected nothing from him.
Absolutely not. The people that he promised.
I expected nothing from him.
Wait a minute.
I expected nothing of Joe Biden. He was the guy who brought us NAFTA. He's the guy who brought us the Iraq War. He's the guy who wrote the Patriot Act, who wrote the crime bill. I expected nothing of him.
When a presidential candidate makes a promise to people and lies to them in order to get them to go to the polls, I believe it's my job as a member of independent media to make it clear so that people don't fall for those kinds of mistakes going forward. People, if Biden wants to run as I'm a milquetoast incrementalist who's just better than Trump, he can feel free to do that all day and night, and then he would have lived up to the expectations that he set for himself in the context of a primary campaign.
He did run as a milquetoast.
He promised to cancel all student debt for every graduate of an HBCU and $10,000 to $20,000 of student debt for people who earn less than $125,000 a year. Now, that might not matter to you, and I defend you guys against claims that, you don't care about this stuff because, you're out of touch and it doesn't affect you in material. I think that some of those claims get really silly and overly personalized. But Biden made a choice to tell 44 million Americans who have student debt that he was not only going to not fulfill his promise to them, but that in the middle of the debt ceiling argument of a couple of months ago, the one thing that he was going to bargain away to get the debt ceiling passed was ending the student loan moratorium. So now it's not me. I'm not the one in control of whoever votes. He has to make the case to those 44 million Americans who's he's starting their student debt up. That's right. Months
before an election. Is the plan stronger or weaker than what you expected? Because it's way stronger than what I expected.
Hold on. Way weaker than what I expected.
Well, I expected nothing from him on student debt. Nothing.
The real question, though, is we all want all of the debt to be canceled.
Duh. Yeah, of course.
What is the most likely path to get us there?
It's not Joe Biden, obviously.
Hold on. But I don't see how Cornell West getting 5% of the vote and unintentionally helping to reelect Trump, that doesn't get us there at all.
Let's get into that. So for
whereas
two things,
if you have a primary contender actually able face-to-face to pressure him, we have seen the way that can potentially work.
Those aren't mutually exclusive. So why is that an argument against Cornel West?
It doesn't have to be exclusive, but do you think that the project of defeating Trump is worthwhile at all? Because I would turn back on you. You asked the question, like, where's the bottom of the lesser evil question? Like, where does that end? I would turn it back on you and say, where does it become not just a lesser evil, but like, actually, this person is significantly better. And I would say that Biden, for my disappointments with him, for all of the things that I talk about plenty, including disappointments on student loan debt, including on the pandemic relief that I talked about, including on the railways, all these things, right? Ukraine. At what point, though, do you acknowledge that this person is a lot better than Donald Trump? And so when you're in this binary choice where let's not pretend like Cornel West is going to be president of the United States, it is worth making the choice in that situation to reelect Joe Biden and get the NLRB and get the antitrust stuff and get what is at hand to be gotten in this moment and live to fight another day.
So for one, Crystal, somebody might say, and people did make this exact argument against Bernie Sanders. Fine, he's on the stage, but I'm not going to vote for him. I'm not going to weaken the person who's ultimately obviously going to be the president of the United States. Why not vote for Biden in the primaries? Why? And you're wrinkling your brow because it's a ridiculous argument. I completely agree. I don't see the argument for Marianne and against Cornel West. They have nothing to do with each other. You can vote for Marianne in a primary. You can be happy that she's on the debate stage, which obviously they aren't allowing, which is material to this argument, I've got to say. Some people you're saying, what is the Green Party going to do? The Democratic Party has demonstrated that it won't host a free and fair and open primary.
Wait, I get that. But how does Cornel West getting 5% of the vote and helping unintentionally to reelect Trump, how does that move us towards our goals?
So two things. One, you said this in the now viral clip, that just framing Cornel West as the spoiler, looking at those polls. In those polls that you referenced, Biden is losing in both of them, with or without Cornel West in the race. Now,
Cornel West makes it worse.
Cornel West makes it incrementally worse.
I just want to clarify one thing. I'm not blaming people or saying like it's their fault for Trump getting reelected or whatever. But I am saying we would like it if the way the Democratic Party responded to Cornel West would be to cancel all the student loan. But we know that's not reality.
And so
we know that what ought to happen and the reality of what will happen are two very different things.
Let's get to the second point.
Yeah.
You framed the 2016 votes for Jill Stein and the reaction of the Democratic Party subsequently as evidence that a concerted movement effort to withhold one's votes has been proven ineffective. It is obviously the case, Crystal, that there was not a concerted effort in 2016 or any kind of structural movement to withhold one's vote for Hillary Clinton in favor of Jill Stein. It was just a bunch of us angry Bernie bros, a very small number, by the way, because we all know sitting here that more Bernie Sanders voters in 2016 bent the knee and voted for Hillary Clinton than Hillary Clinton voters in 2008 bent the knee and voted for Barack Obama. We all know these statistics. We've been saying them back at neoliberals for the last 5, 6, whatever years. That being said, there was no argument to control the media narrative and present an opportunity for actual leverage and change. So there wasn't like a group, there was no spokesperson, there was no politician, there was no left media that was saying, here, I have a organized movement, an organized group of people who are willing to actually change their mind and vote for the Democratic nominee in exchange for various concessions. That didn't exist. And I'm, by the way, not advocating for it. I know that some of my friends like Nathan Robinson have said that Cornel West should do exactly that, say that he'd be willing to drop out in exchange for various concessions. I think that's better than nothing. I think that's more than, frankly, I love Marianne and I hope she's successful, but that's more than Marianne is likely to get out of this. However, that is not even my plan, my perspective.
Yeah.
What I am saying, though, is that knowing that the Democratic Party is fundamentally not willing to be fair. They're willing to rig the election. They're willing to change the order of the states. They are willing to completely block Marianne out of the media. It feels rich to say that running within the Democratic Party is manifestly and demonstrably more effective in actually changing the outcomes
because of the structural barriers,
than Cornel West, who at very least, you keep being very dismissive, Kyle, about this 5% matching fund.
First of all, I've said like 2 words in the past 10 minutes, okay? So I'm not being dismissive about anything. I haven't gotten a fucking word in.
Okay. What is it that you're chomping at the bit?
It's the structural barriers against running as a third party, as rigged as it is by the DNC against outsider Democrats, which it definitely is. It's even more rigged against third parties, which is why they always get like 3% of the vote.
Which is literally
why Bernie got 43% of the vote.
Which is literally why people feel it is a structural advantage to get someone like Cornel West to 5% of the votes so they can get federal matching funds. To me, as
He'd
a
get
voter,
40% as a Democrat.
for me as a voter in New York, I'm not interested in shoring up the Democratic Party.
No, that's him getting his ideas out.
Wait a
It's
minute.
shoring up Cornel West. That's the whole
I
point.
am not a Democrat.
I understand that. That's very clear. But I'm saying that would shore up Cornel West.
And the people who also don't want to vote for Joe Biden under any circumstances are not Democrats. And fundamentally, you can make your argument. I think it's a perfectly legitimate argument to make to Democrats. I think that Democrats might think that Joe Biden is a manifestly better Democrat than other Democrats.
But it's not about whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. It's about what are your political goals. And I think that we
100%.
share a lot of the same political
no,
goals.
there's a big one that we don't share.
But hold on. So I still don't understand. Just lay out for me.
Yeah.
What in the ideal scenario happens, and how does that constitute any sort of revolutionary change or help to further the goals that we largely share?
Yeah. I think for one, getting federal matching funds for third-party candidates, since I believe third parties are going to be a much better vehicle to actual meaningful change in this country than the Democratic Party, is infinitely more significant a goal.
But
than
third parties haven't gotten a single electoral vote in 50
it's like round
years.
and round and round and round.
No, but it's true because, I mean, look at Ross Perot had all the money in the world. It didn't matter.
He didn't get one electoral vote.
He didn't get one electoral
Do you agree that
vote.
ranked
That's the
choice
reality
voting
of the
needs to come
American
first? That's
political
the important question. Do you agree?
Welcome to another episode of Straight Out of Politics. I'm your host for today. I'm CJ. That stands for Compton J, or you can call me Jay. In real life, they know me. I go by Jay. Mom calls me Jimmy sometimes, or James. I'll tell you one day what my nickname was as a little boy. Not today. You never guess it. It's not a word, so you'll never guess it. It's not like you're going to come up with it. So I'll tell you one day what that was. But anyway, welcome to the show, Straight Out of Politics. I got to make sure I say it the right way. We have a interesting show today, a lot to cover. So let's start with that. Let's start with what we're going to be covering today. I'll put the graphic back up. So today, the main graphic, Nina as Cornell's VP pick. And we're going to get that, probably be our third story we get into today. And Nina Turner has been teasing a huge announcement for a while. So it feels like this could be it, or it could be, I could be wrong. This is all my guess. This is not all any sort of sourcing I got, but we'll get to that. And you'll see what I mean when I bring up the tweets. The other things we're going to talk about, this is a shocker, an establishment shocker. We may not feel it as much, but the Washington Post, in particular, this writer named David Ignatius wrote an opinion piece that came out on the Washington Post, and it was called Biden Should Not Run Again, or 2024, something like that. Now, why this is sort of bigger news than the regular story that would say he shouldn't run is that this is one of the top propagandists for the state. He is so trusted that he literally is like very close to very high up people, including Joe Biden. So him saying this has a lot more weight. It has so much weight where what's making news is not necessarily what he even wrote in the article, is the fact that this writer is writing it. There's articles where that's the headline. So that's why that's why I'm calling that a big shocker. But anyway, Bill Maher gets dragged for crossing the WGA picket line by everybody, including by somebody we all hate, Keith Olbermann. We'll get to that. Niko House talks to Cornel West and Jimmy Dore about the interview they had. So if we get time to that, we're going to play those clips. And then lastly, we have Glenn Greenwald calls out Khanna for his obvious support for Forever War when he went on the Breaking Points interview, and he makes a comment on that interview. So we're going to get to all of that today. And if there's any news I'm not covering, this is something new. What story am I not covering? What top story? One story. Don't write a bunch. What story am I not covering that I should be covering today? Because I might have time to insert it. But a Biden 71, thank you for the super sticker. Before we get started, always showing some love to many leftist channels, and we absolutely appreciate it. And let me see where we're at with our numbers. If you didn't hear the Boston Clinic that I guess is RBN, yeah, RBN, Rome and Savvy has been talking about starting. They started the fundraiser for that because that's now the time has come upon us for that to get open. So that's one of the next things we're going to be talking about. Not today, but RBN in general. We're at 159 likes and we're approaching 400 people watching. Can we get like 200 people to hit that like button? Let's get to 350. 350, translated 350 likes. Like I said, we're at 159 right now. So let's try to get to 350. That is the goal. And I think the story I want to start out with is the David Ignatius Washington Post article. Let me make sure I remember what the target is. 350 is the target. I got to write it down. His article, because it has been such a shocker, and so many people, the establishment is pulling their hair out, in other words, for this article. So let's dive into that. I don't think I have any more super chats. Let me check to make sure I don't have any more super chats before I get started. And no. Oh, actually, let me see who shouted out. Let me see who's here. I see Rick here. What's up, Rick? I see Rondo. She's Black is here. Goes Rick. Lots of regulars. Lots of new people. Welcome to all of you. Also, Dr. Nick is in the house. Robbie Burns, UAW strike. We'll be talking about a story on that. Oh, back to the stories. I didn't finish telling you all the stories. My bad. So the remaining stories, thank you for that. Niko, I was talking to that Glenn Greenwald. Wait, I thought I had to. Oh, I skipped over it. My bad. Yeah, right here. UAW. Oh, because I didn't put the little separator. UAW strike strategy appears to unmask a sellout. Yes, because if you didn't hear the strategy, they're actually not going to go all on strike at once. They're going to slowly strike some smart star number striking, slowly add more. Sounds kind of fishy to me. It sounds kind of fishy to me, but we'll get into that story along with all the other stories. But first, let's get to the first story I want to cover. Is it this one? Yeah. Morning Joe actually had the writer on to deliver the news. So this is how you know this guy is a big deal. Morning Joe is the establishment. Both sides watch Morning Joe at this time slot. Mark Rubio talks about it all the time, or talked about it before. How he was in the gym exercising and watching Morning Joe. So the establishment donors watch Morning Joe. This is who they take in for news. Dave, this is why David, you don't see David appearing in many shows. You don't see him appearing as often as some other people. Uh-oh, hang on a second here. One of my destinations... Rumble. Looks like Rumble has gone down. Yeah, Rumble has gone down. Hopefully, maybe we'll get it back up, but I got a notification that Rumble has stopped streaming. So get word out for everybody to come on over to YouTube or Twitch or Twitter or Facebook. Any of those other places you can watch. But yeah, I just got a notification on stream that Rumble has lost connection. All right, so back to what I was saying, David Ignatius does not appear on too many shows. Although he is a regular on this show because it is an establishment show, this is a shocker for the establishment. And let's listen to it. Shout out to Case Study QB. He clipped this entire the entire segment. So let's watch it. Here we go.
Let's bring in columnist and associate editor for the Washington Post, David Ignatius.
Well, David, you have official Washington talking. Certainly the White House.
So let me say this too. If David is saying it, if it's coming out in the Washington Post, and David is the opinion writer, that means he sets the tone. He has now set the tone. It's similar to like in sports, when a player in football, like a player in football, let's say a quarterback, Tom Brady gets paid $100 million for a 3-year contract. That sets the tone for the next quarterback that's getting numbers like his. You get what I'm saying? So it sets the tone. So he is setting the tone for the establishment of all establishment. It's okay now to go in on this topic of replacing Joe Biden. That to me is saying they are seriously considering it, or they have made the decision, this is what we're doing, and this is first step, getting it out into the public, the establishment public. So that's the sense I got. That's the sense I feel they are saying. And I think in one of the clips I have, they actually say that, that now it's okay for everybody to talk about. It's a conservative clip, but still the point is made.
House talking, your latest opinion piece in the Washington Post also has my wife talking, David, and I don't know that you'd like to hear what she has to say. You may. Go ahead.
The piece is entitled President
Biden
I
took
should
that a
not
completely
run again
different way.
in 2024. And in it, you write, quote, Biden wrote his political testament in his inaugural address. When our days are through, our children and our children's children will say of us, they gave their best. They did their duty. They healed a broken land. Mr. President, maybe this is
I should also said this, but it's now that I'm listening, I'm getting those emotional propaganda vibes coming back, and it brought back my memory to say this point. This guy, you hear how you can already hear how he's speaking so eloquently, is so like written as if I know years down the line people are going to be reading this as something part of history. It's very romanticized. It's very cinematic. You can visualize what he's saying cinematically as some sort of hero patriotic movie. That's how he kind of speaks. And so I'm going to replay it so you can hear with that now sort of context. You can kind of listen to how she reads it now.
Go ahead.
The piece is entitled President Biden Should Not Run Again in 2024. And in it, you write, quote, Biden wrote his political testament in his inaugural address. When our days are through, our children and our children's children will say of us, they gave their best. They did their duty. They healed a broken land. Mr. President, maybe this is that moment when duty has been served. Biden would carry two big liabilities into a 2024 campaign. He would be 82 when he began a second term. And according to a recent Associated Press and ORC poll, 77% of the public think he is too old to be effective for 4 more years. Because of their concerns about Biden's age, voters would sensibly focus on his presumptive running mate, Kamala Harris. She is less popular than Biden with a 39.5% approval rating. According to polling website 538, Harris has many laudable.
Do you understand? Like, it is, I can't overstate enough how this is sending shockwaves through Washington, D.C. Because not only is he saying Biden shouldn't run, he's taken out what the establishment will refer to as a natural successor, which is the vice president. He's taking that. He's like, no, not her either. Throwing her under the bus too. So he obviously has been picked to deliver the bad news. He's been picked to deliver the bad news. So I think it's funny, but let's continue. Which tab is it? This one.
Qualities, but the simple fact is that she has failed to gain traction in the country or even within her own party. I hope Biden has this conversation with himself about whether to run and that he levels with the country about it. It would focus the 2024 campaign. Who is the best person to stop Trump? That was the question when Biden decided to run in 2019, and it's still the essential test of a Democratic nominee today. So, David, what are you really saying here? Because if you look at Biden's track record and the fact that he has beaten Trump, I don't know why you would question his ability to beat him again. There are other presidents who are later in years, including the Republican presumptive nominee. Is this really about Kamala Harris?
So, Mika, you summarized my argument, what led me to write this piece, just right. I admire many things that President Biden has done in domestic and foreign policy. I do think that that legacy, and at the center of his legacy, is the fact that he stopped Trump. He stopped him in 2020. He stopped Trump supporters in the midterm elections. He's mobilized the Justice Department that is now bringing Trump to accountability. I worry that all those achievements are.
So you see the way that they present it, it's like, you know, you've done your deed for America. Now it's time to retire. Like that's the way they're trying to present it. And they're trying to present it in a way that he's going to be seen as some historical figure because he stopped Trump's fascism. That's what he believes, or at least that's what his audience wants to hear. They want to hear these sort of fantasy, sort of American patriotic stories, or they want these headlines wrapped in these sort of, in that sort of way. And that's the way they're sort of dressing, getting rid of Joe Biden. These are very, very well developed propagandists. They do their job very well. So let's continue though. Oh,
risk.
There we go.
And it seemed to me through this summer, I haven't gone anywhere in the country. I haven't talked to any group of people where this issue of whether President Biden should run again hasn't been a centerpiece of conversation. It doesn't get into the newspapers. It doesn't get much on TV except Fox News, which is obsessed with it. And I thought that it was time to raise that question. And again, the heart of it is whether Joe Biden is the best person to carry this legacy forward. He may decide that he's the only person who can defeat Donald Trump. I mean, he sees that as his mission. It's why he ran in the first place back in 2019. He may decide he's the guy who can do it and nobody else can. And that's his decision. But I felt it was time to have a more public discussion about this. It is, as I say, something I'd be surprised if you and Joe and the people you talk with are not discussing it in private. I find everywhere I go, it's a subject. And what journalists like me should do is take issues like that people are talking about in private and bring them forward so we can have a better discussion. So that's a simple explanation.
I want to tap into your expertise, though, because you write a column that is, extremely, I think, in a way, it's a very, very strong message for you, David Ignatius, to write this column. And you have spent much of your career spending time writing about or writing with the greatest strategic thinkers of our time on world affairs, on foreign policy. And when you look at what Joe Biden has done with NATO and the war in Ukraine, and in terms of galvanizing, putting this country back on a track to lead on the world stage? Who would be an alternative right now?
It is so bizarre, and they do this many times. I'm not saying in this segment, they do this often, where they'll list Biden's accomplishments and then they include Ukraine. Like the vast majority of the population is not now against Ukraine in their own polling. Like the counteroffensive didn't disappear. You notice they don't talk about the counteroffensive, right? Because it was a disaster. They don't talk about that no more. So I don't understand, why would you bring up that knowing that did not turn out well? I mean, is Ukraine winning by your standards? So just it's weird that they use that. On Morning Joe, I notice more often than not, when I do hear it, it's from Morning Joe. But let's continue. We're more than halfway done.
Who could do that on day one, a legitimate one?
So, Mika, I can't name you that person. The thing about the democratic process is that it yields answers to questions like that through this amazing phenomenon I still believe in. I believe that open discussion, that nominating campaigns produce clarity, produce candidates, produce leaders.
Wow, he's even saying campaigns
that Biden
too.
has been a strong leader in foreign policy and in domestic policy, as I wrote in the column. He has passed some of the most significant domestic social legislation in decades. In foreign policy, one of the things that I admire most about Biden is that he's gathered a team around him of very solid people who think strategically. He is the leader of that team.
You mean
but
Anthony
the team members
Blinken?
themselves are strong. I have no doubt that this team of sensible, strategic people in the Democratic Party who are driving foreign policy forward in a good way will continue, no matter who the Democrats choose. So on that score,
is that the establishment telling their donors? Because again, this show is talking to their donors. Hey, don't worry. If we replace Biden, we're going to make sure we replace him with someone that's going to continue to flood the weapons manufacturers with money. That's what that sounds like to me. That's what that sounds like. They're trying to talk around without saying the words directly. Wow. Democrats are the war pigs, are the war party now, or has been for a little while.
I'm less concerned than you are. I think it comes down to what we were talking about earlier. Is Joe Biden the person who can stop Donald Trump or somebody like Trump who gets the Republican nomination? That's what he's got. He's got to look in the mirror, search his soul, and make that decision. And I wanted to raise that question. I'd like him to think that through carefully, because I have my concerns.
Well, and Willie, just to answer David's question, Mika and I, everybody we talk to, every political discussion, it talks a lot about Trump. But when it comes to Joe Biden, people say, man, he's too old to run, isn't he? I mean, he's not really going to run.
Morning Joe Scarborough just said in his discussions, people are saying he's too old. Now, in other discussions, when he reads polls in other segments previously, weeks ago, days ago, he makes it sound like people who think that is ridiculous. But David Ignatius has opened up a lane where now everyone, it's okay. If David is saying it, it's okay for us to now expose what we really been talking about behind the scenes. Now it's okay. Welcome to new members to the RBN family. We have Sarah, brand new member, and L. Colinton. Thank you. Welcome aboard. Brand new members. Just saw that pop up. The next thing, or actually, let's before I comment again, let's play a little more of the video here.
every discussion. When I say every discussion, I don't mean 99% of the discussions.
Wow.
Every discussion. We got
You
it.
made
I
it
asked
seem
Reverend
like-
Al if he was hearing it all the time on our show this past week. He's hearing it as well. So, we often will complain about Republicans who will say one thing about Donald Trump off the air and another on air.
That's what you
let me
guys have
just
been
say,
doing.
Democrats off the air will say Joe Biden's too old. Why is he running? On the air, they won't say that. So I commend David
Motorcycle.
for at least raising the question. I mean, my question, of course, Willie, is who can do a better job as president as Joe Biden? And who can beat Donald Trump?
A monkey?
I don't see a lot of Democrats out there. I don't see any
Answer to the
Democrats
second
out there
question
right now
too,
that
a
can do
monkey.
that.
Well,
To
that
beat
is,
Donald Trump.
both of those points are exactly right, which is every conversation about politics, whether you're with Democrats or Republicans, it's about Donald Trump, and it's about, boy, Joe Biden does look old. He's about to be 81 this fall. He'll be 82 a couple of weeks after the election next year. That is a real conversation that's happening. And when they see him sometimes at public events, they might even cringe a little bit and want to look away and not watch that.
Wow, they're
And then the other
admitting
part
this
of it, though, is
on
the important
TV.
question that you're
It's
asking,
a
and
little
that
bit
Mika's
shocking
asking,
to me.
which is, okay, if not him, who? And I think where a lot of people land, Claire McCaskill, Democrats, is he the guy who can beat Donald Trump? Well, he did once. He already beat him a couple of years ago. So of all the people they're looking at on whatever this sort of fantasy menu of candidates on the Democratic side is, they say, yeah, he might be a little bit old, but I'm going to vote for him because I don't want the guy who tried to lead a coup against the United States government to be president again.
Yeah, I think that the bottom line is we've got a lot of strong leaders in this country that are older than Joe Biden. Bernie Sanders is older than Joe Biden.
Given an opinion
Rupert Murdoch is older than Joe Biden. Warren Buffett is older than Joe Biden. So
are they stumbling around, mixing up dates? Are they pretending? Are they saying stuff like they were on ground zero the day after 9/11? Claire McCaskill, loser? Like, what is your point? You're naming people that aren't in politics and elected president. What does that have to do with anything? Claire. And that's Nick's old state representative. So he has stories or has mentioned that before. I have another part here to share. So I think I'm going to stop that clip there. That's the bulk of the interview. Shout out Case Study QB. Again, we're going to use, that's 9 minutes. Maybe it's not the full clip. We're going to use a couple of his clips, actually. Oh, and here's CNN talking about it. This is a much shorter clip, 3 minutes, under 3 minutes. But this is where the shock is. It's a shock that it's David, and this is CNN talking about the same article. Let's listen in on CNN.
There's a new op-ed in the Washington Post urging President Biden not to run again for president. Columnist David Ignatius writes, quote, I don't think Biden and Vice President Harris should run for re-election. It's painful to say that, given my admiration for much of what they have accomplished. But if he and Harris campaign together in 2024, I think Biden risks undoing his greatest achievement, which was stopping Trump. A recent polling suggests that many Democrats agree with Ignatius. 67% of Democratic leaning voters said they prefer a different Democratic nominee. Let's bring in CNN senior political analyst John Avlon. John, two things I want to get to right up top. The reason why this is different from other op-eds is the White House reads David Ignatius. Yes. He is not just a critical, kind of longstanding voice in Washington, D.C. This White House cares what David Ignatius thinks. President Biden cares what kind of old bull columnists, and I don't mean that in a pejorative way whatsoever, have to say. There's no question about that. The second is it doesn't matter because there's no other Democrat running at this point that has a chance.
At this point. But no, this op-ed is going to.
Because you guys have announced that there's no primaries. And I don't mean this guy who's talking. I mean, the DNC has announced that there's no primaries. So you see how mainstream media, cable news, they intentionally leave these thought gaps, these information gaps, in order to mislead the listener who doesn't know the details or the particulars of a story necessarily. So, but that's what he just did there. But that's not the point. Let's continue.
To be a gut punch to the Biden White House, exactly for the reasons you said. Biden respects Ignatius. He is one of the mandarins of the DC sort of policy, journalistic, foreign policy establishment. And the fact that this is not coming from a reflexive critic, but someone who says in the op-ed that Biden has been a successful, consequential president. And yet he doesn't think he should run for re-election for reasons of age, vigor, and crucially, his vice president. It's a pretty devastating op-ed.
Yeah, right. And he's critical of Harris, saying Harris has many laudable qualities, but the simple fact is that she has failed to gain traction in the country or even within her own party. And
she's a meme. Kamala Harris is a meme. Like literally, anytime she's in front of a mic, I wonder how her camp discusses this. Do they discuss that the fact that anytime a video of her in front of a mic, we already know this is going to be a word salad. This is going to be some incoherent speech. This is going to be some uncomfortable laughing moment. Like she's a meme. And to me, I don't think she can shake that, especially not to win an election. She definitely can't shake it enough to win an election. I don't know if she can even shake it to be likable.
he goes on to argue time is running out. He says in a month or so, this thing is going to be baked in stone. The issue is Democrats may not want it to be Biden, but they also don't know who they would want it to be. This is the issue with the CNN polling, right?
Y'all trying to act like y'all don't want it to be. Y'all know y'all want it to be Gavin Newsom and possibly Gretchen Whitmer of Detroit, the governor of Detroit, maybe the VP pick. Y'all know, I mean, it could be a several insert Democrat here, but they know. This is why Gavin Newsom has been touring, just in case he has to be inserted in or a primary opens up. He's already been touring as if he's running.
Yep. Who would you want to see run instead of Biden? This is a question of Democrats. 82%, just someone besides Biden. And then you get specific names. It's like 3% for Bernie Sanders, 3% for Buttigieg. So what is that? What is Biden?
Yeah, nobody wants Buttigieg's old
There's not a coordination process. This is part of the reason that primaries exist, right? To test talent, to give people a chance to make their case.
Wow. So people say, who would you want to see run instead of Biden? And they say, just someone besides him. Please get the real Bernie. What's the hell? Get the real guy that played Weekend at Bernie's. Get the real Bernie from that movie. Anyone other than Joe Biden. That's 83%. This is Democrats. 8 out of 10. This is why David Ignatius and Washington Post is coming out with this op-ed, because it is coming to the final. They need to make a decision if they're going to swap them out, because maybe they're saying there ain't much we can do here. The Bidenomics has been going on for several months. That has not been effective whatsoever. The number actually has gone backwards. So, but look what, I don't know who they're polling. To have gap. I mean, yeah, you would have to have a primary before. I think why don't you just insert all of them and see who comes out? That's how the primary process works.
There's an old story about Abraham Lincoln being told he's got to replace a top general, and the person says, well, Lincoln says, who would you have me replace him?
Right.
And he says, anybody. And Lincoln says, well, I must have somebody.
Yeah.
And this is the problem the Democratic Party's in right now. It's not too late as a functional matter. But this is a very tough op-ed, is rooted in reality, rooted in polling that shows that there's deep dissatisfaction, not with Biden as a person, not with Biden as a president, but the prospect of a second term with Kamala Harris being his backup.
Wow. They are really destroying Kamala Harris. They're really finally admitting it. I already played that one. This is somebody upset. I wanted to play this funny. This is a TikTok video. David Ignatius' opinion is lazy and based on feelings and not facts. receipts. And then she says hashtag Biden Harris. So this is a funny part I'm adding to the segment. Let's listen.
Yesterday, David Ignatius wrote this opinion
This is a
piece
Biden
for
fan.
the Washington Post. In the article, he says that Biden should not run again in 2024, obviously, as the title says, but he makes a distinct point to talk about the fact that Biden should not run with VP Kamala Harris. And this is the reason why. The reason he gives is because he said that she is less popular than Biden with a 39.5% approval ratings. And as I've told you before about polls, you need to dig into the detail. Most recent YouGov poll that came out on Monday. The question they asked was, describe your feelings about Kamala Harris as Joe Biden's presidential running mate in 2024. 62% of under 30 basically are Gen Z, and some millennial voters said 62% that they were enthusiastic or satisfied. Biden voters, 77%, Democrats, 84%, Black folks, which there wasn't that many polled, 70%, and Hispanics. The people that were angry or dissatisfied were mostly white, 60%, Independents, 65%, and Republicans, 87%. When pressed by Mika, he didn't have anything to say.
I'm not sure what she thinks she's proving, but the country, the electoral college is set up to where a small segment of the population makes a decision on who becomes president in these swing states, making independents' opinions outsized, have a bigger influence. So the very group you're saying did have a bad opinion of him is the very group that matters. In other words, these groups with these high numbers aren't the ones that's mattering. Because if these group with these high numbers had enough sheer numbers to affect the bottom line number, they would affect it. So obviously they're outnumbered, in other words, is what I'm saying. But I'll let her finish her point, and then we'll move on to the next segment.
Say today on Morning Joe, he was a fumbling, mumbling fool.
Galvanizing, putting this country back on a track to lead on the world stage. Who would be an alternative right now who could do that on day one, a legitimate one?
So, Nika, I can't name you that person.
Then when Claire asked him,
why is this Kamala Harris a problem instead of an asset? I don't get it.
So I think it is it's a riddle. It's one that I and other people.
It's not a riddle.
Should
She's
write
terrible.
more about. How, as it was during the primaries back in 2020 to me, I expected her to be a stronger candidate.
His argument is atrocious, and I will show VP's accomplishments in another video. But to keep
his argument is atrocious. Did she not drop out of the race because she had bad polling numbers? Did she not drop out of the race even before California because she was polling to lose her own home state? This is amazing. It's amazing to find they're alive, people. There still are K-Hive people. There still are people who are out here defending the K-Hive. There was a news headline I wanted to show, I thought, here. Other than that, I think I'm going to cut it here. Actually, I can play this 1-minute video. This is Fox News reaction to the same article. Like I said, this is shockwaves that is coming from this particular writer. Final video, final comments, and then we have the next story coming up.
Context, you have this David Ignatius op-ed in the Washington Post. For him to say, don't run for president, in the Washington Post, just to put in perspective for people who don't live in Washington, how big a deal that is.
It's a very big deal because David Ignatius is one of the princes of the Washington political and journalistic establishment. A longtime columnist at the Washington Post. Before that, he spent years at the Wall Street Journal. His father was a senior official at the Washington Post years ago. He is a card-carrying member of that establishment. And for him to come out and say this now, I think is telling, and the people in the Biden administration have to worry that if this starts to catch on with other leading liberal journalists, it could become a stampede that may be hard for them to head off.
Yeah, last thing, and just
so yeah, now remember that was a video to express how important or how shocking it is to come from this particular writer, and that was the video I had saved to indicate or show that point. And let's see what some of your comments are if you comment on this story. Here's one super chat about it. This is really bad theater. Yeah, how they're pretending be shocked by this when they all have been talking about this all along, and now it's out in the open because they see the numbers. And I absolutely believe this is also connected to the CNN poll that just came out. Devastating CNN poll. Devastating CNN poll. We covered it. You can check out the clip that Aaron clipped for us. Here's another super chat. I'll read this again during the Nina segment because this pertains to Nina, but oh hell nah. Nina Turner is done. She showed us who she is, and we believe her. Done and done. Thank you for those super chats. Yeah, let's get into the next story. And I'm gonna go from here. Let's get into the next story, and I believe that is going to be the Bill Maher story, because it's just showing you his tweet and a couple of headlines here, a couple of tweets. I think this is an easy story to kind of get out there. He had to make an announcement, and think about it this way. He had to have known, or maybe he's so high up there, so much money, maybe he wouldn't have known that this would come off badly. But this came off very badly, and he was ratioed and taken to the woodshed many times by many people. But this is the statement he made to notify people that he was about to be a scab. And, he tried to nicen up, but, he really doesn't care. I don't know who would watch him. Only really rich people would watch him, but it could give a fuck about workers, really. But maybe that's the audience. Maybe that's his audience. I mean, that's who he is. Maybe that's who his audience is. So here's Bill Maher. And then after this Bill Maher story, we're going to do the Nina Turner story is the next story after this segment. So let's get into this one. We can start here, Aaron. Bill Maher is being dragged on social media for breaking, or crossing the picket lines of the WGA and everybody else, that the Actors Guild and everybody else that's on strike. And he knew that it would not land well, so he did have a statement. And here's his statement. I'll read it directly. This is Bill Maher on Twitter. Real time is coming back. Unfortunately, sans writers or writing. It has been 5 months, and it is time to bring people back to work. The writers have important issues that I sympathize with, and I hope they are addressed to their satisfaction. But they are not the only people with issues, problems, and concerns. Fucking worker. Despite some assistance from me, much of the staff is struggling mightily. We all were hopeful this would come to an end after Labor Day, but that day has come and gone. And there still seems to be nothing happening. I love my writers. I am one of them, but I am not prepared to lose an entire year and see so many below the line people suffer so much. So he's doing it for the poor people. He's breaking a strike and saying, I'm doing it for the poors. Is that part of your bit? Is this a bit? I will honor the spirit. The spirit the intangible, imaginary thing that I'm calling the spirit of the strike by not doing a monologue, desk piece, new rules, or editorial, the written pieces that I am so proud of on Real Time. And I'll say it up front to the audience, the show I will be doing without my writers will not be as good as our normal show, full stop. But the heart of the show is an off-the-cuff panel discussion that aims to cut through the BS or bullshit and predictable partnership. And that will continue. The show will not disappoint. Look at Empire of Lies. This mofo Bill Maher should be boycotted and shamed every time he appears in public. What a disgusting scab. And that's what I'll do now. Just kind of show some of the reaction. After I show one of the bigger name reactions, who even got an article written about him because of his reaction to Bill Maher on Variety, Keith Olbermann. So Keith Olbermann, he's one of those people who tries to put his nose in everything, puts his nose here. Keith Olbermann slams this Variety. Keith Olbermann slams Bill Maher for resuming his show amid the strike. And here's the quote: "Without writers, the new weekly scab edition of Real Time will be 83 seconds long. As somebody who's known you since 1978, F you, Bill, you selfish and unfunny scumbag." That's the quote from Keith Olbermann. Like, Keith Olbermann is just such an unserious person. I can't unsee the way I knew him. I didn't know him in politics when I first heard of Keith Olbermann. He's so unserious. Even his picture, he looks like that's an unserious smile, like he's holding in a smirk. He's so unserious. But this Variety, they wrote a little piece on it. And this is the actual tweet that they wrote on, and he posted the article with the tweet. "Without writers, the new weekly scab edition of Real Time with Bill Maher will be 83 seconds long." In its own Variety. Let's pull it up for a second. And this is written by Brian Steinberg. Let me see. Let me close all these pop-ups here. I used to come to Variety all the time, so I know it has a lot of pop-ups. So I wanted to do that before I share. So now let me share after I cleared all the pop-ups. Hopefully they don't have any delayed pop-ups that might come up after, but we shall see. All right. This is it. Yeah. Here is Variety. Bill Maher plans to start HBO's Real Time without writers. A lot of people may not know all this stuff is written. This is why the late night talk shows went off the air. All those jokes, none of those people, they're just actors. They're the people delivering. Even to an extent, for example, my brother works for Chris Rock. He writes some of the jokes, and he has a team of writers. Comedians typically start out writing most of all of their jokes. Once they get big, they have a team of people. Kevin Hart, same way, has a team of writers. They're usually their friends. They're also comedians usually. And that's the case. All right, so here, let's read just a little bit. I've never used one of the little voice thing. Let's try it. Let's see what it sounds like.
Just a quick word from our sponsor.
Oh, they got a sponsor. Never mind. Bill Maher will soon be operating by some new rules, and not just the ones he makes up in the signature segment on his HBO show. The comedian and the commentary plans to restart production of Real Time on HBO without writers, the first of TV's phalanx of the late night host to try and do so despite the continuing Hollywood strike by the WGA SAG AFTRA. Quote, real time is coming back. Oh, I read that, so I don't need to read his comment. But that is, I think that's enough to read of this article. Because there was another one. Maybe if they have that same point here, I won't read the other one here. Wow. Okay, here it goes right here. TV late night programs continue to generate discussion and the threads of popular culture, but longer shows like NBC Saturday Night Live and Jimmy Kimmel Live remain dark, the more risk there is of viewers in the era of streaming video making permanent changes to their consumption habits. So maybe that's what Bill Maher is afraid of. Is he afraid that he's going to be out of rotation so long because the strike is so long? So why aren't these big name people, why don't you put pressure more on the studios that aren't bowing to what the actors want? Why aren't you doing that? It's weird to me. It seems like to me with the power that these actors have, if Tom Cruise's, the Will Smiths, and then as far as writers, the Steven Spielbergs, the Spike Lees, if they came together and really was like, nah, this shit, like, couldn't they have some sort of power? The bigger name ones to say, hey, if this, come out and do something publicly to help these more smaller writers. But anyway, that is the final word on that one, on Bill Maher being a scab. I think, no, I did. That was the last thing. I did say I was going to show you a couple more, maybe not. Let me see here. So I was going to show you a couple more comments. And then we get to the Nina story. I can do that. I think I have them saved here. Bill Maher. Yeah, I think I have them saved here. All right, so back to Twitter. Went to the article, read a little bit. That's here's one of the tweets. Empire of Lies. I read that one. There was another one. Here's another one I wanted to read. It says 50 Shades of We. Bill Maher is a scab. Pass it on, and they have that with the scab, the ever-loving rat that depicts what a scab is: a rat, a scumbag. There's a lot of bad press on this guy. I'll just pull up a couple of tweets here. Bill Maher. I like to do this sometimes just to see, because he was trending. I wonder if he's still trending. That's ours. Here goes one. Here goes Ron Caplacone, friend of the show. Bill Maher is a scab, and he stepped in it with this tweet. We all had our shots, but damn, Harry W. Wood. Look at this as a shot. So, because he gets dragged completely by all the other writers. I know we're not supposed to be working during the strike, but I couldn't resist giving this a quick edit. Real time is coming back, unfortunately. We all were hopeful this could come to an end, but I love to see people suffer, and I'll say it up front to the show audience, will not be good, full stop. The heart of the show is bullshit, and that will continue. The show will disappoint. He edited to say that. Thank you, Ron Paclone, for that. Wow, I didn't even have to go through a bunch of them to get to it. But we're going to get to the main story now, which is Nina Khanna. Let me toss this up here. I don't see any super chats, so we're going to go right into the next story, right? Let me refresh my screen just to make sure I don't have any super chats, and then we're going to go right into this next story, I'll bring up my tweet because this is where it starts with my tweet. This is where, it starts with her tweet that I quote tweeted her, but so you get what I'm saying. But we're at 372 likes. We have almost twice as many people watching. So we could literally jump to 550 easily. We could literally jump to 550 easily by everybody hitting that like button. So if you hit that like button now, we can drop or jump to 550. Let me put this on the screen. We're at 372. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we hit the previous goal. Next goal, 550. 550. Like they say on South Park, Chef Terrence. His father says the word fitty a lot. We've had over 1,500 people make their way through at some point. We had up to about 650 people watching all at the same time. So thank you for everybody that has been here, has dropped in. Make sure you hit that like button. I got the numbers for the likes down at the bottom. Also, check out I'll put that back up in a second. Check out our website. Check out our website, and the best way to support RBN is through our Patreon. That's our most stable income. This is what we pay our employee out of, Aaron, who does all of our graphics. So if you want to help RBN or help Aaron to that matter, contributing to or becoming a Patreon member is the best, most stable way to do that. Here is the fundraiser for Aaron. We're raising funds to pay Erin and make sure we're paying her fair share. The GoFundMe is there. The goal is $775. We're more than halfway to the goal. So if you're able to contribute, please do. The entire money goes directly to Erin if you do contribute. All right, so now let's get into the next story after the announcements. And we're going to start with my tweet. So let me go to my bookmarks again here. Did I pass it? Oh, here it goes. Here's my tweet. Oh, I'm tripping. That's Nick's tweet. So I guess I will just go to my tweet. Let me see. Oh, that's not Nina. Okay, here it goes. So, about to hit 400 likes on it. Not too bad. But here is Nina's tweet. So, Red Berets tweets this. And she says, Red Berets has been on RBN, Friend of Show, Friend Networks. I don't think it's that. Now I know that many people do not think it's going to be anything jaw-dropping. They're talking about the announcement. So maybe I should go back here. So this is all because Turner's talking about an announcement. This email from Nina Turner got me hyped. So Nina Turner sent out an email. And it says, big news coming. Are you ready? And this is the response of the. This is the response. Who is it? Oh, this is the response. I hope it's not another congressional run. She's too good to become a perennial candidate. And this is what Red Beret says. I don't think it's that. Now, I know that many people do not think it's going to be anything jaw-droppingly powerful, but I say they have followed the trail. But I say they haven't followed the trail of clues that have been laid down there for us. Hello, somebody. And it's just her saying 2024 is coming. 2024 is coming. Now, if she's not running for another congressional run, which I also think that's very unlikely. Do you think she would jump from a congressional run to a Senate run? Do you think she would go from a Senate run to a congressional run to a gubernatorial run, running as a governor? Do you think she would go or accept the invitation to be the VP pick for Cornell West? Which one of those do you think is more likely? And that's the point of view I'm coming from. This is Nina Turner saying, genuinely cannot wait to announce what we've been working on. Now, as with Peter Dow, we could have seen Peter Dow being the campaign manager of Cornell West if we saw the clues in his tweets. If you go back now and look at some of the tweets since after him, between him becoming a campaign manager, leaving the Marianne Williamson campaign and becoming Cornell West's campaign manager, you notice he starts talking about both red and blue is not going to do right after, even though he was not right after, but the way I should say it is, even though he was just campaigning with Marianne Williamson. Peter Dow began to talk about that's not going to do. We have to run outside of the duopoly now, even though he was just the manager of a person running inside a duopoly. So you have to wonder how far back was he in consideration, or at least planning, targeting to try to be part of the campaign of Cornell West. Same thing with Nina Turner. Would you say she's been in the last 6 months or so, her tweets, her engagement, even on corporate media, has been a lot more forceful and radical. And she's been a lot more willing to criticize the Democratic Party like she wasn't, in a way that she wasn't doing it when she was running as a candidate. So all of these reasons, I thought it was an educated guess for me to make this guess. I'm predicting that Nina Turner's big announcement is she's Dr. Cornel West's running mate. I think that's a good guess. Now, some people took my fist pumping as me saying I'm supporting this choice, when I'm throwing my fist to me saying it's clearly next to me saying I think that's a good guess. So I'm saying that's my guess. Not at all confirming any support for or denying, just nothing. There was no comment either way. Anyway, that's what I said. It's about to hit 400 likes. Bob TV said, the Shirley Chisholm Democrat, no more Democrats, Wes. And then he has this meme of Dave Chappelle, famous video. So he says, this person says, CJ, I don't get that feeling at all. Not at all. So we'll listen to that in just a second once we read a couple of more. Nina is painting a pool of beautiful blue. I don't know what that one is. All of this is just more of the same repackaged. This is duopoly light. The Green Party is simply running fake progressives through the car wash and shining them up. Another good sort of meme. This is Robert. Robert says, well, it'll be even more lame, like Tim Black is joining TYT. Is Tim Black joining TYT? Post-Duopolis just puts a throw it up emoji. This one says, she's dim through and through. She sleeps. I'm not going to go there. I'll vote for that because there are some people that support it. I'll vote for that. Maybe, but wouldn't that announcement come from West's team? Would it? I don't know. And who's to say that this announcement, if this is true, and this is purely speculation, if this does happen, if she is the selection, if this is the big news, she can be saying, I can't wait for the big news. And then Cornel West announced it. Just like he announced it for Peter Dow with just some sort of, maybe they'll put out some sort of video. But I don't know if we should take it so narrow to mean she is physically the one that's going to be making the announcement without Cornel. If this was the announcement, this is all based on if this was the announcement. But let's continue. Oh my God, I would love that. So I count 2 people that are for it. I count 2. Oh my God, I would love that. But Nina is just the Democrat, a green ticket with 2 Biden voters. West campaign liaison to the Democratic Party. I'm trying to think of what would be most disappointing. So an establishment shield and another. I also predict the same thing. Definitely. Nina Turner was offered VP slot, and this is just old news, an old story of Nina Turner being offered the VP slot before. That's what that story is. That would be another disastrous move. She's a Democrat through and through. What if she's running as a Democrat? That's another one. What if Nina Turner's big announcement is not that she's Cornel West's VP pick? What if it's that she's running as a Democrat? What if she's jumping in a race as a candidate in the Democratic primary? That could be another possibility. And so this is the question for the chat. And we're going to start this at 11:50 my time. That is 2:50. So 2:50. It has to have this timestamp of 2:50 for me to put your comments up. What do you think separately? What would your reaction be if she announced that she's running as a Democrat for the president in the primary? So then it would be RFK, it would be Marianne Williamson, it would be Nina Turner running against Joe Biden. And then also answer the question, what would your reaction be if the announcement came out that she is Dr. West's VP pick? What would your reaction be? So you got it. Your comment has to have a time step of 2:50 Eastern time, 11:50 Western time or Pacific time for me to read it. That's just so I don't have to keep scrolling far back. So put your answers to that question in there, and I'm going to get to that. So let me read a couple of more here, and then I'm going to get to all of your comments because I'm curious to see what you guys, gals, and people have to say. Miss Turner thinks her grift is still effective. Maybe this is too much of purity chess. I don't know. I used to be a big Nina fan. I soured on her a bit when I saw her defend the fraud squad non-action during forced to vote is in an almost condescending way to those who disagreed. It's called strategy. I do remember the comment. Get ready to be sold on half a bowl of shit again. This person says, I pray you're correct, Jay. Nina is probably Balinsky's, that's Kyle and Crystal Ball, top political icon. After that fiasco of condescension against Brianna, to see their verbal gymnastic and logical distortions at this news would be truly hilarious. That's a great point. I'm going to actually retweet that. Because what if it was Nina Turner? What would Breaking Points, specifically Crystal Ball's reaction be? Because she says she loves her. What would your reaction be? Now, if she ran, either one, what if she ran as a Democrat because she has her friend Marianne Williamson running? What if she ran outside under Cornel West? So those are both would be great reactions. But now let's get to your reactions in the comments here. Let's get to your reactions. I'm going to scroll up at the beginning of the 2:50 mark, and I'm going to begin to look here. Wow, it's a lot of comments. So not sure I can get to all of them, but it begins here. This is the first one I see. The timestamp of 2:50. Sheep herd back to the Democratic Party. This one. Dow, Dem, Turner, Dem. That's a good point. This is a Green Party ticket. You're adding 2 Dems. And again, the Nina Turner part is speculation. This is just me and my guess on the things I said earlier. That's all. Oh, we have a troll. Yeah, this person's a troll. Don't worry. I see people talking about we have a troll. Yeah, we do have a troll. Don't worry. We have trolls all the time. They hate our guts, and we're completely fine with it. So trolls are here all the time. So let's continue though here. 150. Nina Turner is a grifter, is what one of you said, or your comment. You say you would be unimpressed. You would have sadness if she was added, I would assume, to the Green Party, because she's full. Nina's gone full DNC. This is another one. This is Black Freud. What's up, Black Freud? Haven't seen you in a while. Nina the grifter. Here is Ashura. Ashura says, who's hot? Who knows, Jay? I don't care for Nina. Okay. So I see maybe some good comments, some bad comments. No, Ajamu wasn't chosen until late in the cycle. I do think that Cornell West may do it a different way. Maybe he's been in conversations with her instead of waiting. She's saying, I want to be part of the fight. Bring me in, coach. Bring me in now. I want to be part of the fight. It could be that. Again, this is just me taking a guess at this. Be serious right now. Can we? With the duopoly? Can we? Nina Turner running for parliamentarian in 2024. Let's see any other comments. Any new comments here? Yeah, troll. Like, I love your comment. Don't give the trolls attention and they'll go away. That's what I try to do now. Here's another comment. Nina is a Democrat. I lost all trust when she refused to even mention the Medicare for All marches. Nina is a fraud squad candidate, not legit. Okay, so most of you are not feeling her. Maybe she had a couple of fans. Not fans, but a couple of people that was like, I'm cool with it. But this is just a reaction. And I think I'll leave it there. All right, I will leave it there, and we'll get into a couple of our other stories here in the last hour of the show. We'll get into some other stories here. But is there any stories that I'm missing here any new stories that just dropped that I could insert here? Let me know in the comments. I'm going to be looking for those in just a second here. Where's I going to go? Here is where I was going to go. And next thing I want to cover at the GME, let's do the Bill Maher. We'll go to the Khanna endless war. And because there is something I want to point out. There's something I want to point out that anytime Khanna, I'll save it for the segment, but it's something I'm gonna say. I'll save it for the segment because I'm not starting the segment quite yet. I do want to read some more of your comments, but I'll get it prepped here. I do want to read some more of your comments here. No Khanna, UAW. Yeah, I do want to get to the UAW story. when I was listening how he was saying the next steps were, I was thinking to myself, like, what kind of shit is this? I'm like, you're saying this is effective, I guess, but this doesn't sound good. And then today, when I wake up and I'm hearing the same critiques from a lot of people, it just, speaks to I wasn't on my own with the feeling I had about what I thought and hearing the news about how they were going to be doing this. So it's just weird to me, but we're going to get to that story in a few moments here. Or unless you're putting in the comments, you're mentioning UAW for me to do the story. So I do have a UAW story. So I don't know if you were saying to do it next or just mentioning as a story I should cover. I do have that as part of in my description as one of the topics I will be covering today. So that could be why I'm confused here. But in the meantime, we're at 479 likes. The goal is 550. We've had over 1,700 people make their way at some point and listen in and watch the show. 1715 to be exact. And I'll put these numbers up here. Now, and again, just to shout out our website. If you're in Boston, the cool thing about Boston is the Boston chapter has a mutual aid request process. So if you're a person who needs help with something, let's say you're a single mom and you want some tutoring for your 5-year-old in math and you're not great at math, not 5-year-old, let's say 8-year-old, 10-year-old, you're not good at math, you can submit a mutual aid request on this website, scrolling at the bottom in the Boston chapter. There's a Boston chapter tab there. You can submit a mutual aid request. Name, address, phone number, contact information, what it is that you need. You can submit that on the website and you can check out some other things there. Best ways to support us is Patreon. Also, the best way to support our editor, our one and only editor, media person, Erin, we pay her equally out of the Patreon funds. She gets an equal portion of it. So if you donate or if you become a Patreon member, that also helps and contributes to Erin. And thank you. If those that are doing that, thank you for those that are doing that. This is the fundraiser we're running for her. That's the GoFundMe. We're more than halfway to the target of $775. We're more than halfway to the target. So thank you for all of those people that has contributed. Now, let's get into the next segment. And the next segment is Khanna. Do I have a tab for Khanna already? I don't, so I'll make one now. I thought I did. Oh, no, I wrote it in the description. So Glenn Greenwald calls out Khanna for pushing endless wars. All right, that's a good topic for the segment. And we can start here, Aaron. Glenn Greenwald calls out Khanna for pushing endless wars. And he calls out both parties, but he quote tweets this video that we're going to watch right now. And let's play the video, and then I'll read his tweet. Here is Khanna on Breaking Points with Crystal and Sagar.
What's your thinking about this extra $25 billion?
I will support it. I know some of your viewers will not like the answer,
okay.
But
Progressive is supporting giving $25 billion to Ukraine to
while
Nazis.
We also seek a just peace. And if we don't support them now, we're giving license for Putin to make more gains into Ukrainian territory. And I clearly believe that Putin was morally wrong and wrong under an international law. Now, if we can support Ukraine and if they can continue to make some progress, it's been hard fought progress, but some progress, then at the same time, we should be engaging our allies, France, India, others to see a just peace.
So let's say this: 25 billion. The Ukrainians do with the 25 billion what they've done with 100 billion, which is use it, make very little progress. When we're sitting here 9 months from now, and they ask for another 25 billion, what's the answer then? You give it to them again? We pursue peace? Like what is the limiting principle on the amount of aid that we're willing to send to Ukraine?
Well, look, everything is contextual.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and say for the next 20 years we're going to be funding Ukraine. But the point is that.
But you're also not going to say
anything
anything definitive. But you're also not going to say anything definitive in the opposite direction. Marianne Williamson does this too. Well, no, I don't want a blank check. Okay, then how much? Give us the amount. What is, because if you're saying there is a too much amount, there is a threshold. But you see, the reason they want to be tied to a threshold is because Khanna and Marianne Williamson know very well that the war pigs of the Democratic Party, there's no telling how long they're going to drag this out. And if they drag it on year after year, this money is going to continue to go. So they can't be locked in a number that's going to put them as opposition to the Ukraine war at any point. That's the reason why they never give an answer to specifically then what is the amount that's too much
in this request. And then we've got to continue to make progress in trying to see how we get Russia out of the Donbas region and where they've violated sovereignty.
Like if we pull aid, let's say we don't pass said package, then actually a diplomatic solution looks a lot more likely. Now, of course, I'm not saying that's just, and if I were them, I would be furious as well. But we also have to consider our own interests here.
Well, the question is, what are they capable of doing and what do they want as a just solution? Yeah. If they come to a conclusion that they themselves have had too many loss of lives and that they want some compromise that is short of a just peace, that's very different than us pulling aid and forcing their hand, which sets a horrible precedent.
Now, I must speak to this because I just thought of this. Not now, but understand this is the reason for the pivot of breaking points, the pivot of Crystal Ball, the pivot of Kyle Kalinske. They are pivoting to be the new mainstream, to be able to bring on figures like that. And you know what they can't do if they want to bring on figures like Chris Matthews, who was on a couple of weeks ago, and Khanna, you know what they can't do is be an independent channel that supports third-party movements. That's what you can't do, because then these figures will be less likely to come on. You see the pivot? So the pivot has all to do with self-preservation. They didn't make any sort of calculation looking up the NLRB. Now, the fuck out of here. Let's continue.
Precedent, in my view, for China and Taiwan, for Russia continuing the action of aggression. I mean, Russia took Crimea. Now they're taking Donbas. What's next? I mean, if we don't stand up and say, as a big power, you can't.
Crimea and the Donbass wanted not to be a part of Ukraine after the U.S.-backed coup leadership took over. What are you talking about? I'm sorry, that applies to Donbass. In Crimea, they already took a vote. They don't want to be, they want to be part of Russia. The damage that is done by a person who publicly calls themselves progressives, while at the same time is a neocon. Do you understand the co-opting of the ideology, the language that it just makes it so difficult to ever build any sort of coalition with them, because they have one foot in the cesspool while telling us they have one foot out. I can't see that one foot though. They tell us they have one foot out, but let's continue to finish.
Can't just take a little power or other country, then it undermines the rule of law in the international system.
So let's go to Glenn Greenwald's assessment of this here. Glenn Greenwald says the establishment wings of both parties and all the Democratic Party have the exact same. Let me say this again. The establishment wings of both parties and all of the Democratic Party. Now I understand. That is scathing in itself. The establishment of both parties. So both parties' establishment, but not only the Democrat is not just establishment, it's the entire party, including the progressives. This is the reason why we call them the war party, Marianne Williamson. When you went on the Jimmy Dore show and he said they're the war party. I don't know if you don't. What faction of the Democratic Party are the anti-Ukraine war faction? There's a faction of the Republican Party that has that. Even if they're projecting and not serious, at least they have people who are putting on a show about it. We don't even have anybody in the left, so-called left in the Democratic Party that's even putting on the show, including Bernie Sanders, including AOC, all of the squad. Glenn goes on to say, and all of the Democratic Party have the same exact view on the war in Ukraine, but also on U.S. foreign policy in general. There's dissent on this all over the world, left and right, but in D.C., every establishment sector is in lockstep. And I wholeheartedly agree. We're not going to watch that clip again, but
I will support it.
I wholeheartedly
viewers
agree. Wow. He looks shameful even saying he's going to support it. You ought to be ashamed of your damn self. You ought to be ashamed of your damn self. Actually, I'm going to the wrong place, everybody. My bad. I should have went backwards. We got that comment. There was a couple of comments I wanted to go to and then show you the other part here. So anytime, actually, let me read the comment and then let me do this in order instead of going out of order. Let's go to the comments. So we read Glenn's. Let's read some other comments here. Here's Empire of Lies again. Incredible. This clown, Khanna, is spewing the same tired Cold War domino theory that was used to get the U.S. into Vietnam. We all know how that turned out, right? Here's another comment. Dan Cohen, writer, journalist. It's remarkable that, and I'm actually going to open this up. It's a longer one. It's remarkable that Khanna has long ingratiated himself with the progressive left while representing the interests of his Silicon Valley constituency, which since 2014 was feasted on the corpse of Ukraine and is used it as a laboratory for the fourth industrial revolution. He's a permanent war proponent as much as any politician. And that's that damage they're doing to the progressive brand. They don't give a fuck because they don't really care about damaging the progressive brand. But this is another point of the segment. It actually could be a different segment. Anytime Khanna, what I've noticed, anytime Khanna comes out and does his neocon stuff, vote, whether it's a vote or he has to go out and speak in line with the Ukraine war, you know what else comes out? He'll say, oh, but I'm introducing a bill of this progressive bill. He does something, quote unquote, progressive to counter it. And guess what happened? Common Dream helped to do that. They come out with an article. I mean, they're covering it, but there's not a coincidence that this article comes out. And I'm going to read the full headline here. It's on Common Dream. Khanna confronts big pharma lawyer over Medicare drug prices. You see, this is the dynamic where he has to keep balance. Anytime he does his neocon dancing, he tries to keep balance by pointing out something progressive, by saying I'm introducing a bill, by an article, by showboating in this hearing, so that an article is written, or he calls in a friend at Common Dream to write an article about what he did to counter it. This is what I've noticed Ro Khanna does so often. And we have to start calling this guy out, that we are seeing what you're doing, sir. We can see it. The California Democrat accused Johnson & Johnson, maker of the 160,000 per year leukemia drug, I can't pronounce that, Imbruvica, of floating a flimsy legal theory in a desperate attempt to protect profits. This guy got the fucking audacity. So this is what they do. They showboat in these hearings. Ilhan Omar does it. AOC does it. They showboat in these hearings so they can get these sort of let me put this on the screen. Actually, I read that part, even though I had just the headline up, but I'll show you what I read just so you can see. I didn't think of that all by myself, just so you can see yourself for the headline. There you go. Shameful. Ro Khanna confronts Big Pharma lawyer over Medicare for all drug. This happens to come out a day or two, if not the same day, as Ro Khanna's appearance with Breaking Points is going viral, and people are going after him. It is just simply not a coincidence. He does it in interviews too. I pointed it out when he used to do it in interviews. He would go on the Breonna Joy Gray interview. She would ask him, "Why are you doing this?" And then he would just out of the blue just start saying a bunch of progressive shit that had nothing to do with the language. Oh, this is what I'm doing, and this is what I'm doing, because he knows what I'm speaking to is that Ro Khanna absolutely understands that a lot of the things he does is very neoconish, is very right wing, and that's why he has to cover it up or sort of supplement it or sort of mask it by saying and showboating and boasting about some sort of progressive thing that he's done. That's the MO of Ro Khanna, and we have to start calling it out each time. All right, so that's the story for Ro Khanna, and I think I got one or two more stories here. Yes, UAW strike is the next story I do want to cover. The UAW strike, because I covered it yesterday, and I covered it yesterday before the news of what the next step was for the union was. So I covered just, this is what the guy is saying. He went on CNN, taking a big game, and I'll save it for the segment, because I'm kind of getting into what I want to say about the segment. But let's do that next segment. But first, let's go through our announcements. I got to get back to doing our announcements in between segments here, because I can't assume everybody's watching from beginning to end. So let's not assume that. We're at 546 likes, so we just hit our target of 550, and onward to our next target of 650. So we've hit 550 in our target, and we have a new target of 650. We've had over 1,800 people make their way through at some point. So thank you for all of those people that have jumped through or come through to see us for a few minutes and hop back out. Hopefully you're able to watch the replay later. Join our Substack if you want to know when we go live. Nick went live last night. If you missed it, he had Nick at Night. He covered the impeachment story with Matt Gaetz. Make sure you cover that, or make sure you go watch that stream. But you would have known about that if you on our Substack. We send our notifications out for our streams. And our schedule, you know, it's kind of, I'm starting to do a regular time here. The 1:30 slot, I'm trying to make it regular for me. Sometimes it might be 2 p.m. instead of 1:30. But yeah, other thing is become a Patreon member for RBN. Becoming a Patreon member helps us to pay our one employee, our editor, the one that does our graphics and our editing for our videos, Aaron, the one and only Aaron. So if you're able to contribute and become a Patreon member, as low as $2 a month, join our Patreon. Scrolling there at the bottom, here is the fundraiser for Aaron's, the latest fundraiser. We do these fundraisers every month. $775 is the target right now. We're more than halfway there. If you're able to contribute, please do so. Thank you. All right, now to the next story. And let's go to Twitter. We'll leave Common Dream and go on to Twitter here. And this story, this makes you sad that, man, is this a co-opting? Is this a sellout? Is this the selling out of something? So let's listen here. And so if you don't know who this is, William Lee, he's a UAW president, or he's running as a UAW auto workers. He was one of the people running. He's a rank and file, but he's kind of radical. He's the one that's calling this out. And he says, actually, let me put my banner up here. Let me get into the story. And Aaron, where is it here? Here it goes. Aaron, you can start the segment here. This UAW story has gotten a lot of us excited because it's in this guy, this president, Sean Fain. He says he has been seeing a lot of this right things. He seems to be appearing very radical in the interviews, saying they're not taking less. But in announcing yesterday, he did a stream. And this clip right here that you see playing on the screen is a snippet of it. They did a stream yesterday, or he did a stream yesterday, where he was talking about the strategy of the strike. And what he announced, I was shocked. And I didn't think it was a good strategy, even before I heard about this latest story. I was shocked because what he announced was that everybody's not going on strike today. So tonight at midnight, everybody's not going on strike. A small number will go on strike. And then while the deals are trying to be worked through, and if no deals are made, then a small number will be added. And another small number will be added. So it's this slow trickle of striking. How is that going to bring pain? I was thinking that yesterday. I was like, how the hell is this going to bring the pain that's needed to the capitalists to get what you want? I'm like, this seems, but I didn't go too hard at it. I was just like, this seems very unusual. But let's listen to what the point, the pivotal point in the video where he talks about this.
We're inventing a whole new way to strike. And we're calling it the stand-up strike. We will not strike all of our facilities at once. We will communicate with regional directors and local leadership who will walk their membership out if and only if they are called to do so. If your local is not named, then you are not yet on strike. But don't stop working unless you're explicitly called on to stop. We're inventing a whole new way to strike.
What? And this is what Will Lehman says. And like I said, Will Lehman, I've done a story on him. It's been a while when he was going through the elections. But Will Lehman for UAW president. I'm running for president. So he was one of the candidates that was running for president. Okay, so that's who this person is. And he's saying this is a sellout. He said here. Oh, I'm saying, yeah, that is right. Because it could have said here with HERE too. But he's saying here, meaning listening. Listen, UAW President Shawn Fain tell auto workers not to strike. This is an absolute betrayal of the will of the membership. The membership have voted to strike. Overwhelmingly voted to strike. But this strategy is everybody's not striking. And this is the statement, or I'm sorry, let's put this up here. This is William Lehman, rank and file auto worker and 2022 UAW presidential candidate. Shawn Fain prepping sellout. Quote, by announcing Wednesday that the UAW will only call limited stand-up strikes at a few plants, even without a contract, UAW President Shawn Fain has admitted that the UAW bureaucracy is selling out the rank and file. So I wake up and I see this story. I'm like, man, I had this feeling in my gut. Not sellout, but just that this seems so milquetoast to do it this way. And I was like, is it some strategy that I just don't know, that this is a strategy that's effective and I'm just not understanding? So I reserved to say anything about it. But this is, so anyway, let me move on to a longer statement that I have. I believe this is it here. This is a longer statement by this auto worker for 2022 candidate for the president, and he got close, but he's very militant. By announcing Thursday that the UAW will only call limited stand-up strikes at a few plants, even without a contract, UAW President Shawn Fain has admitted that the UAW bureaucracy is selling out the rank and file. Fain is not calling on workers to stand up. He is demanding that we lie down and accept what the company wants. The isolation of the strike to only a handful of plants will ensure that it ensures that it is as ineffective as possible. And that's the same feeling I got. This is ineffective. By keeping production going, it will boost both corporate profits and the UAW strike fund, which the bureaucracy had raided for decades to pay their own bloated salaries. You see how they're filling the coffers of the UAW strike fund. So do you think they're doing this limited sort of rollout because the UAW strike fund is low, because it was rated to pay their salaries, like this statement is saying? The decision against launching an all-out strike is not legitimate. It contradicts the clear will of the rank and file, which voted 97% to strike all three companies now. It was taken behind the backs of the rank and file membership and at the behest of the corporations and the Biden administration. It was announced by a president elected through massive voter suppression with the support of only 3% of the rank and file membership. Most workers never even received a ballot to vote last year. We cannot afford to leave things in the hands of these traitors. The UAW bureaucracy has made it clear what side it is on. This means we, the rank and file, must organize ourselves, hold emergency meetings in your factories and warehouses tonight and tomorrow to democratically decide and plan how to countermand countermate this betrayal and what collective action is needed. If there is no contract at midnight on Thursday, we cannot be separated as FON wants. We must all stand together on strike. Man, I got a bad vibe when I was watching that video yesterday of Sean Fan giving an update. And you know why? When he was like, oh, we're going to be doing this, he was like, we're not going to, he was like, the next day, we're not striking, we're doing this event. He pulled up the event graphic. And the event graphic had a Democrat on it named Bernie Sanders. And I was like, is that suspicious now? Yeah, I'm saying this shit is suspicious to me. This is suspicious to me. But let's go UAW, Sean, thing, next steps. I'm going to see if I can find the video because there's a lot of videos out there. I think this is the one they put out. I want to find a section where I'm talking about where I was when I was watching this, I was like, man, Bernie Sanders is involved in this. I was like, that shit cannot be good. This is me thinking yesterday. So I feel almost vindicated for the gut feeling I was having yesterday about listening to this. And we're not going to watch this whole thing. I'm trying to find the part where he makes the announcement. Let me see. It's towards the end. I think it's towards the end here. It was towards the end. So let me see if I can find. Okay, there he goes right here. He goes and he's talking about this and he's like, there's an event coming up. And then this pops up. And this is what gets me suspicious.
At the
holding a mass rally with strike breaking adjacent Bernie Sanders. So I thought this was weird. That's Bernie Sanders. Now I mean you can see him through the wording, the caption there. So stand up for our communities and not strike at every location. That's literally what they're doing. And on the first day they're not striking, they're going to have an event. And at the event, Bernie Sanders is there. I don't know. This seems a little fishy to me. I don't know. Let's let me pull up the accompanying article just a second here. This is highly suspicious. This is highly suspicious. Let me find the article here. Thousands. UAW mobilize. Let me see if there's an accompanying article here. All right, so let me first bring up this article. I'm trying to see if there's another one accompanying. Oh, wow. So that same guy actually wrote this article. So actually, yeah, I'm going to go to this article. So the same guy, William Lehman, the one who ran for the UAW president and came close. He's very radical, very militant, the one that's saying, forget these people. He's basically calling for a wildcat strike. He's the one who wrote this article. Mobilize the rank and file against the UAW sellout. Actually, it's a video. So let's play his video. It does have an accompanying article, but let's play his video to start with. Oops.
By announcing Wednesday that the UAW will only call limited stand-up strikes at a few plants, even without a contract, UAW President Sean Fain has made it clear that the UAW bureaucracy is selling out the rank and file again. We should understand what this is. Fain is not calling on workers to stand up. He is demanding that we lie down and accept what the companies want. He has gone from saying there would be a first ever strike at all three companies to a strike at only a few plants. The only outcome of this is that these workers will lose their pay and the companies will win, putting hundreds of thousands of jobs at risk through the transition to EV. The aim of this is to divide the membership and break our unity. A small number of workers will be striking, while the vast majority of workers will be used as scabs, producing vehicles and profits for the companies. If workers in the non-striking plants take any action to support their striking brothers, they could be victimized because Fain has let the contracts expire. The decision of the UAW bureaucracy is not legitimate. It violates the will of the rank and file, which voted by 97% to strike at all three companies. It was taken behind the backs of the rank and file membership at the behest of the corporations and the Biden administration. It was announced by a president elected through massive voter suppression with the support of only 3% of the rank and file membership. Most workers never even received a ballot to vote last year. We cannot afford to leave things in the hands of these traitors. The strike fund was built up with our dues money and must be used to carry out a decisive battle against these companies that are determined to destroy tens of thousands of jobs. A line in the sand must be drawn. The UAW bureaucracy has made clear what side it's on. That means we, the rank and file, must organize ourselves. Hold emergency meetings in your factories and warehouses tonight and tomorrow to democratically discuss and plan how to countermand this betrayal and what collective action is needed. Don't listen to the bureaucrats, listen to your coworkers. Elect leaders from the shop floor and get your entire shift on the same page. Talk on the line, on breaks, at lunch, and in the parking lots about what we, the rank and file, want to do. If there is no contract at midnight on Thursday night, we cannot be separated as Fain wants. We must all stand together on strike.
Wow. So let's, I guess I don't need to read the article then, because that's right up from it. But I do want to bring up this comment about World Socialist website. I have a similar, what's the right thing to say here? Hang on a second, everybody. Can I go back even further? Hang on a second, let me go back. I guess not.
Be bargaining on.
I'll leave this up for a second. While I make the point that I wanted to make, it's never as good as you want it to be. But let me read this here. Say, hang on a second. Put the comment back up. World Socialist websites has its strength, but it also has its weakness. My own or highway attitude. Yes. Because they're Trotskyites, and Trotskys, a lot of them are known to be that. They're very like pushy when it comes to stuff. But when it comes to labor stuff, we do lean on them. But you're absolutely right. In the Marxist world, Trotskyites, they have that reputation that you describe here. That is the reputation they have. So yeah, that is true. But this is disappointing that, we can't have nice things. They always have to co-opt us. Just sad, man. We thought we had something here, and come to find out that this guy is just selling us out, because it's like, we're here. No agreement is made. It's time to bring the pain right now. Oh, no, we're not striking everywhere. What? What are you talking about? So I wonder if what's going to happen. I wonder what's going to happen. I'm gonna just do a quick search while I'm here on Twitter, see if there's any new news on this before I moved on. That's the one I just read. But let's see if there's any new news on this. Sean Fain, and I'm saying sell. Let's see if I can find anything. I wonder what Shama Sawant had said, because she was against the contract for UPS. She was against them signing. We were too, just saying. So I'm wondering what she has to say about this contract. Yeah, the UAW is calling him a sellout. Wow. What is this saying here? Is this another article here? Oh, no. All right. So I think we're going to go ahead and close this story. This is one of those things that's going to, every day we may have to give you an update on this. It's a fluid story. I'm looking for the tab to close that. I have so many tabs open. So I'm closing them. I'll eventually find it. Okay, I think I found it. It must be this one. Yeah. All right. Never have nice things. You know that? Because they always, yeah. They always find a way to co-opt, and it looks like he was saying all the great rhetoric, but it looks like the guy Sean Fain is actually just another, co-opted union leader who is just good at covering his sheepdogging for the Democratic Party, and he's teaming up with the Bernie Sanders to go and do this thing. It gives me a completely bad vibe for it. So anyway, let's go to the next story, which is the Jimmy, and not that tab. The Jimmy story, or the Jimmy clips with Niko House. A couple of Jimmy clips with Niko House we're gonna just watch and look at real quick here. And we're gonna look at clips with Cornell and clips with Jimmy, and this is after the interview they had. And Niko is talking to them about the interview. Niko talks to Jimmy and Cornell. So hit that like button, pretty please. Let's see here. I got the video. Why is this taking so long to save? Something's going on with my internet. All right. There we go. It refreshed. We are at 588 likes. The target is 650. The next segment, Niko talks to Jimmy and Cornell West, but 650 is the target. We're at 588. And I'll scroll those numbers at the bottom in just a moment. Don't forget, we have our Substack that you can join. Scrolling right there. Substack is how you get notifications when we go live. Later today, there's JB and Sabby show at 6 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget about that. You'll get a notification of that also if you haven't already. Here's our website. Check our website out. There's a lot of good information you can get on our website. Make sure you go do that. And last but not least, here's our Patreon. Become a Patreon member if you like the work that we do. We do share the money that we get on our Patreon with our editor, our only employee. She's paid the same, paid out the same way from our Patreon, like one of our members. So, all right. So that's what I have to keep remembering to doing. And now we can get into the story here. It's very short clips. I just wanted to display these clips. Oh, it's 1 in 1. So here we go. Let's listen to this one. This is Jimmy Dore talking to Niko, and let's listen.
I just want to say, accept your criticism or critique that I have blind spots. I'm sure I have blind spots, right? And that's what I was trying to show to Cornell. Maybe you have a blind spot about this, and I'm trying to help you. And the one other thing is that I know that if I was born black, I would probably be the type of guy who would have a hard time to stop talking about it. And
you have a hard time stop talking about your experiences.
yeah, that's right. I can't stop talking about so I get that flex. That's why I'm trying to make it's going to take an effort to craft a message that isn't dead upon arrival with the groups of people you want to meet. You can still have the same policies. You can still have the same thrust of importance, but you just have to craft it. That's all I was trying to say. And it was really sad to see people call me a racist for that. And Cornell West to actually promote that. It was really disgusting and it's depressing. I'm really depressed, and I don't know what I'm going to do.
I'm really depressed. I don't mean to laugh at any genuine pain, but just laughing at the it's a bad situation.
I just want to say, accept your criticism.
But I want to take each point he makes and make my point, so I'm going to play the video again.
Criticism or critique that I have blind spots.
So, if you watch the whole full video, and it's a long, I wasn't going to play the whole thing. We don't have time to cover the whole thing. Niko House brings up to Jimmy that you have blind spots, like, a white person growing up in a propagandized sort of white supremacy established world, you're going to have some blind spots on race. And Niko House brings that to his attention during the stream. And this is Jimmy reacting to that. That's what he's.
I just want to say, accept your criticism or critique that I have blind spots. I'm sure I have blind spots, right? And that's what I was trying to show to Cornell. Maybe you have a blind spot about this, and I'm trying to help you. And the one other thing is that I know that if I was born black, I would probably be the type of guy who would have a hard time to stop talking about it. And
you have a hard time stop talking about your experiences.
Yeah, that's right. I can't stop talking about so I get that flex.
So this is Jimmy sort of acknowledging after the fact, because he didn't acknowledge it during the interview. He's acknowledging that, hey, I get it. Like, you're a black man growing up in the United States with all the issues of being black, growing up in the United States. So that's your experience. So I get the normal reaction of you're going to have a flex of that's what you're going to talk about. And Niko is saying, as you, Jimmy, your flex, what you talk about is from your experience. So I get that. And he's saying, furthermore, I get it. And let's see what he says.
That's why I'm trying to make it's going to take an effort to craft a message that isn't dead upon arrival with the groups of people you want to meet. You can still.
And he's saying, and this is the thing with why if the interview didn't go off the rails with both of them getting upset, they could have both came to this understanding that Niko House is getting both of them to come to. They could have both came to this understanding, but it was a hypercharged sort of thing because, and I love the analysis of Niko and Garland of both of this, because both of them speaking about the same thing. It's like you're speaking your own language, and that speaking of the language does have some conflict with the other person in the way that you speak your language. And if you don't come in understanding that, you can have things go off the rails when you're talking to people about ideology, philosophy, anything like that, about what you think about something, knowing that there could be something that sticks out. That's like, if you have a disagreement on something, you don't want that one disagreement to spill over on all the other stuff that you agree on, basically what I'm saying. But let's continue the video. Any other comments I have?
Still have the same policies. You can still have.
So Jimmy is saying here, you can still have the same policies, but craft it in a way where you don't turn off people. That's his point. And then we'll get to Cornell West.
The same thrust of importance, but you just have to craft it. That's all I was trying to say. And it was really sad to.
And the thing is, you were trying to say that, Jimmy, it didn't come off this way. And this is the point that everybody in this is making. It's the point that it come off the way that you would normally be talking about these issues with people who prioritize the same things you talk about. And it's the same point of view from Cornel West.
see people call me.
These to me, this is a normal sort of friction with people who have to come together to fight a larger enemy. This is a normal sort of friction. The first friction is in your language and your demeanor and tone, because it has to be calibrated. Now talking about this new person, this new sort of person in my community. So that's what I saw. But let's continue with the rest of it.
You're racist for that, and Cornell West to actually promote that. It was really disgusting, and it's depressing. I'm really depressed, and I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah. All right. So let's get to Cornell West, and this is the question. Speaking not only of the weapon, no, this is not the one. It's another one. I watched all the videos, and I must have saved the wrong one. So let's go to the right one. I'm looking for the one where he asked Cornell West about. They're talking about Jimmy. Personally, not that one. Please don't let it be in the actual video, because I did watch the video too, the full video, and don't let me get this mixed up. Like I'm mixing what I watched on the video too. I thought I saw it in the clip. No, not that one. That's the Pan-African one. That's the definition of fascism. Yeah, it must be on the video. But I'm going to play the definition of fascism, though. Wow. Yeah. And I'm not going to go to the video. Am I? Oh, actually, let me keep going. Maybe it's here. Oh, here it goes. Yeah, here it goes. Okay. Here it goes. All right. So I did find it. Another video. Here's the other side. Here's Niko. So Niko talks to both of them. And now this is Cornel West talking about it. We heard what Jimmy had to say after he had time to reflect on it. And now let's listen to what Cornel West has to say after he has had time to reflect on the interview.
Just from my own personal experiences, I know that we are all limited by our experiences, regardless of whether or not we want to admit that. And so when you say like, well, his priorities, my perception is, because I know Jimmy's priorities lie in his personal experiences, and he kind of wears that on his sleeve. Like he's never really been shy about that. And so I think personally that was so you got to remember when Jimmy would defend you or defend RFK Jr., he was being called a Trump supporter like that. Like this has been a consistent thing. I know you don't always watch the show, but that's been happening, and I assume gets very defensive if anyone insinuates that to just like how you get called a Trump supporter just by running in the Green Party by neoliberals.
That's right.
And so I feel like he got defensive because one of his heroes, because like despite what he might have sounded like on the interview, based off of the things I've heard him say about you, he considers you probably one of his political heroes. And so if he feels like that's being insinuated by something that may be being in his mind misperceived by you, like something that he's saying that might be being misperceived, then he gets on the defensive because of his personal experiences. And so I think that we are just so limited by our experiences, and it's just we're in such sensitive times. We don't want to be misunderstood. Everybody wants to be understood.
So yeah, go check out both of the interviews. Here's another one. I do want to play that one too, the weaponization one. What do you think he thinks about the charges against Trump about that? Let's listen.
Do you feel like we're seeing a weaponization of a Justice Department that is a beholden to the executive branch, who is running for president again against Trump, who is competition? And do you feel like that is hypocritical? Because if we saw it in the reverse, like obviously neoliberals and Democrats would be screaming from the top of the rooftops.
I believe that the legal system, Department of Justice, has always been weaponized against revolutionaries. It's always been weaponized against Black people willing to tell the truth about the depths of oppression that has a strong class dimension, a strong white supremacist dimension, a strong male supremacist dimension, and strong homophobic and transphobic dimension. So that this notion of weaponization being something new, I'm thinking like, dang, what do you think COINTELPRO was?
But from the perspective of a presidential candidate, do you frown upon the weaponization? Just take the names away. Do you frown upon the weaponization of the DOJ against opponents in the way that we've been seeing?
Yes, no, I think that's wrong.
Yeah,
I think that's just on moral ground. It's on moral ground.
It sort of answers specifically the question. And let me see here. Here it goes. Let me see here. Okay. Let me see here. Okay. All right. I won't play it. I was in the background. I was looking at the full interview with Niko to see if I can find that spot. It's too long, and I picked a couple of spots, and it wasn't it, and I don't have time to look through the entire thing. So maybe I'll cover that later in another segment. So yeah, one thing I didn't do in the beginning, I'm eventually going to cover that Brianna Joy Gray interview, the rest of the interview, because we only covered like 20 minutes, the first 20 minutes. So we still got 40 minutes of that interview we never covered. Brianna Joy Gray with Kyle and Crystal about Democrats. So we still haven't gotten to that full video, which we will do. But we've come to the end of the show. Thank you for everybody who has been here watching. Make sure you join our Substack. Make sure you become a Patreon member. That's Patreon down at the bottom there, scrolling. If you're able to donate to this fundraiser for Aaron, please do. If you're able to do so, would be much appreciated. The other thing, Sabby and JB show is later today, 6 p.m. Eastern. So in about 2 hours, you'll have the Sabby and JB show later today. Yeah. And then I showed you our website. I put up our email earlier. I can put those up in just a second. Outside of that, last super chat here, I did not. Oh, actually, 2. Yeah, 2. So I'll cover this one here. Thank you for the super chat, Justin B. Green Party organizer since 2016. Cornell, Peter, and Nina joining the Green Party is a good thing. Many of us have been pushing for a Democrat exit for years. This will give us a chance to win big. Dems are falling apart and people are jumping ship. So when we were talking about Nina Turner being the VP, is it a good thing? Because don't we want people, so to the point of Justin, don't we want people to exit the Democratic Party? And if they exit, don't we want them to come with us? So was I being unfair and critiquing, or were we? Because I don't think I said I liked it or disliked it. But for those that are criticizing that, the selection of her being a VP pick for the Green Party, or even bringing on Peter Dowell and all this, what about this counter argument that Justin brings up? That we want people to exit the Democratic Party and join us. But I guess another question would be, how do we ensure that these people that are Dem exiting are genuine people who have Dem exited and not infiltrators? I guess that would be a normal, appropriate question to have answered. Thank you again, Justin, for the super chat. Have y'all covered Biden impeachment proceeding? Yes, I cover, it's been going on. So I've done 2 segments on it in the last 3 weeks, 2 weeks. So I basically covered the coverage before they got back to town. Nick covered it last night. So if you haven't had a chance to see it, Nick covered it last night. You can go and watch, go to our YouTube page and see the last stream before this one. The last stream that was published before this one was Nick's stream, and it says Trump impeachment. It says it on there in the title. So you can't miss it. And so to answer your question, yes. All right, now that is it. I got to get going. Got to pick up the little one from preschool. Thank you, everybody who has been watching. Wait a minute. Is Justin in the chat? Again? No. All right, thank you, everybody that watched today. Make sure you hit that like button. It really, really helps with everything. Make sure if you're able to donate funds to any of the causes that are going on, renovation in RBN Library, what Sabby's doing. She's taking no donations for her next event. She'll be doing a giveaway event in Boston at her chapter. I haven't announced it yet, but we'll be doing a diaper run for women's shelters at the Long Beach chapter. But when I get the graphic and all the details, I'll announce that. That's the Long Beach chapter. You know that the Orlando chapter recently did a fundraiser, and they're going to be holding an event soon where they're going to be giving out hygiene bags to the unhoused, and that's what those funds were. And yeah. All right. I'm going to start doing this where I'm just checking to see if there's any news I could be possibly missing since I've been streaming that. Let's see what Bree says. Biden bros don't want to know Biden shows. Okay. Saw that video. I'm personally never seen someone. Jimmy is not perfect, but okay. That's the video we just watched. All right. So far, I don't see any new information that I have not seen. Hotspot is one of those growing accounts that does put together some clips of anything like latest news. So let's see what they have latest on. Gross users depending. That's the clip. Let's watch this one. They have something on. Oh, it's only 15 seconds. I don't want to watch that. It's Elon Musk refusal, Crimea. Okay, Nick UFOs. Okay, we watched the other one, so let's watch the Nick UFO one. Okay, actually, let's watch the COVID one. Let's watch the COVID one. Now, COVID is Jimmy Dore's number one issue. It's not the number one issue for other people. It's not the number one issue for me. But he is a lot more passionate about it than I am. And we have to understand all of us have different priorities. And because somebody doesn't take your priority as their priority doesn't mean they're against you. That's not what that means. But let's listen to this clip. This is the last clip. I'm going to be out. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Lockdowns and COVID policy was the issue of the day.
I remember you said that.
So then he says that he's going to have a truth commission to find out what exactly happened in COVID. Now, I was going like this. I was shaking my fist like, yes, right on. And then instead of ending on agreement like a real politician would, like someone who's actually running for president, instead of ending on an appointed agreement, he went out of his way to find a way to disagree with me, which is the exact opposite of someone who's actually running for president. And that's not what you do. So he then said, but he goes, we're going to have a truth commission and all that and find out exactly. And I'm doing like that. We agree. Let's end on a high note. I'm with you. That's great. I can't wait to see it. He then says, but I'm sorry. You and I live in different worlds and you're obsessed. I'm going to paraphrase. But he said, you made it out like I was obsessed with a vaccine. And so it just shows he's completely, I know he's completely out of touch with COVID. I know most of the Green Party got it 100% wrong. Most of the people I admire got it wrong. So I'm trying to impress upon him that this is a super big issue, that you could get a lot of votes through this. The Medical Freedom Act. I just met people at my show in New York City, 3 people starting a party, the Medical Freedom Party, and they got ballot access for some. So there's a big group out there. And so that's what I'm trying to impress upon him on.